I want to thank you all for being here today. With these Trump Tuesdays, there has often been a problem in selecting topics because there is so much going on and it implicates so much of our community and the policies are so important. So with that being said, I wanted to let all of you know that next week we're going to talk about healthcare. And we have some doctors coming and some patients and some others, so I would urge you all to come next week to listen about healthcare. Today we're going to talk about the potential impact of the budget that President Trump has proposed. To be succinct about it, it would be devastating to our community, to the ties that bind us, from affordable housing to Meals on Wheels, to funding our community centers, to the work for our environment that the EPA does. It would undercut the very fabric of our city and our community, and there would be real victims almost immediately. And to talk about that, we have some people here today who can talk firsthand about these programs and what they fund and what they do. And first, I have asked my Community Development Director, Paul Driscoll, to come and talk about community development block grants. And no surprise to all of you, he actually said yes. So Paul works, among the many things that he does, is works very closely with HUD and with the organizations in our community that utilize community development block grants. And so I will ask him to talk about the potential impact and what this could mean for our community. Paul, come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for showing up on this brisk day. As the Mayor said, my name is Paul Driscoll. I'm the Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development for the City of Syracuse. I'm probably the second most famous Driscoll here after Joe. And usually I have a quip about...
Corey's in the back.
Where's Corey? Oh, sorry about that. I usually have a quip about, neighborhood and business development. It's NBD. It's no big deal. But this is a big deal that we're facing right now, unprecedented in terms of budgetary prognosis for our city and our housing stock. One of the main purposes of NBD, Neighborhood and Business Development, is we administer these federal block grants that really are the only source of housing funding for the entire city. And I know most of you here know the situation with not only our housing stock and our poverty rates. To gut that is just unconscionable, and that's exactly what this proposed budget does. Just some quick numbers for you on the general HUD budget. It's every year. Last year HUD nationwide received $46 billion. It's fairly typical in the 40 billions. It's overall, the president's budget cuts that by 14%, taking away over $6 billion of that. And then within that cut is a total elimination of the community development block grant and the home investment partnership grant, which is really the bread and butter of our housing policy or housing funding in this city. You're going to hear from Ricky Brown from Home Headquarters, who is our primary recipient of housing funds. The Home Headquarters administers all of the housing programs, the rehab programs, the purchase rehab, down payment closing costs, the program, the SHARP program. All of that is run through Home Headquarters, but the subsidy portion comes from these block grant funding, which will be, like I said, completely eliminated out of this current budget. But it also is more than just housing. It funds all of the 3 community centers in the city, Southwest, Northeast, Westcott Community Center. All of the programming that they do, primarily for children and elderly, are funded out of this block grant. So that's at risk. We also have what we call a Housing Vulnerable Task Force. That is a consortium of agencies, including Hiscox Legal Aid, Catholic Charities, whose focus is on the occupants of people living in substandard housing in our town. And that, the money specifically goes to relocation for people out of substandard housing, working to fix these substandard units. So all of that goes away in this budget. And it's, like I said, I think unconscionable is the only word that comes to mind. Also, I'll end with this. I mean, our entire department gets funded out of the block grant. And, you know, so that saves the city's general fund some significant money in terms of the administration funding out of that. But I also think about all the other non-federal programs that aren't receiving direct federal funding, but are administered through our department, specifically the Land Bank, Industrial Development Agency, Syracuse Economic Development Agency. All of these are funded by virtue of the fact that we can pay staff out of these funds from the block grants. So it's just unprecedented. The entire country is reeling from this. Our colleagues across the city, or across cities across the country. New York City stands to lose almost $200 million in block grant funding. I probably should have prefaced this by our total dollar amount typically is in $5 million for the city. So it's a pittance compared to the need, but when you take that away, we're at a whole new time right now where I just can't imagine this city without these funds. So it's a huge blow to this community. We're going to fight back. The recipients of these funds are already coalescing and intend to, I think Ricky might read from a letter that is probably going to go to our federal officials. And we're not going to, we're going to do what we can to secure these funds for our community that are so important. They really do address and assist the most vulnerable citizens in this city. So we are at an unprecedented time, and we are not going to take it lying down, but we move forward, and I appreciate everyone coming out here today to hear the impacts of that, and I appreciate what you'll hear from Ricky and the Southwest Community Center going forward. So thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Paul. Go ahead, Ricky.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, folks. My name is Ricky Brown, and I am the Director of Community Engagement for Home Headquarters. As Mayor Minor mentioned, we are the recipient of the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Funds. A number of programs that Paul highlighted, including the SHARP program, the foreclosure prevention program, which we operate out of Home Headquarters as well, which goes on to help prevent at least 50 foreclosures in and around the city of Syracuse. I cannot tell you the impact that these dollars have on our programs. I formerly oversaw the first-time homebuyer program. We now have close to 300 graduates that come out of that program, or home buyers, actually 500 graduates that come out of that program. But the Community Development Block Grant Funds also assist those first-time home buyers. In the SHARP program, a number of our constituents and community members are in need of those funds to help stabilize their homes, to remain in their homes. I work with seniors every day that are vulnerable and susceptible without the use of these funds. Not only do the program funds go to support those neighbors, they also support the contractors which we're able to support and put with them. As far as the local economy is concerned, those contractors are hiring from the neighborhood. These funds have impact way beyond the $1 that's spent here. And for every $1 that we leverage with those Community Development Block Grant Funds, we bring in an additional $3 into the community. Right now, we're susceptible to losing an additional $17 million worth of funding coming into the city of Syracuse if we were to be replete without these funds. We need to be steadfast. We need to remain consistent in terms of our advocacy on behalf of these and understand truly the impact, again, beyond just the administrative portion of these funds and how they impact us all as a community. Thank you very much for coming out this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you, Ricky. You want your notes there?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Helen. You need no introduction.
Thank you again for coming out today, and I'm going to speak a little bit about this because I was a recipient of the CDBG fund, and as a young single mother, if I did not have this help, my house probably would have been like some of the houses that we rode across the city and we've looked at. So for the federal government to look at even cutting these funds would be very detrimental to our community, because these are funds that almost a broad swipe of our community rely on. When Ricky talked about seniors, I know seniors that if they had a problem with their water heater, who else is going to come in and put another water heater in for them without these CDBG funds? And then looking at the numbers, I realized that the CDBG funds that they're going after are only 3% of the federal budget. So in reality, you'd rather strip this 3% from people that really need this to try to balance your budget. Not going to happen, okay? So for me, I'm just going to implore everybody to continue to stand strong, and let's stand together, because our community, if these funds go away, it would be a big detriment to the city of Syracuse. We have substandard housing as it stands now. We're working to try to right our neighborhoods. These funds put neighborhoods back together, and they're more sustainable so that we can continue to move together to build block by block. And not just the neighborhoods we're talking about. We're talking about the community centers. When you're looking at Southwest and you're looking at Northeast, you're looking at Westcott, they have a huge population of seniors that depend on these CDBG funds to get them through. So I'm just going to implore everyone to write your congressman, write Schumer, write whoever you need to write. But we need to ensure that these funds stay steadfast in our community. Thank you again for being out here, and have a great day.
Thank you. I just want to wrap up by saying that if these funds are cut, the problems don't go away. That if there's cuts in funding to help us with lead paint, that means we're going to have more children poisoned by lead paint. If there are cuts in funding in affordable housing, it means we're going to have more people living on the streets. If there are cuts to CDBG, that's less money that goes to our community centers, less children that will have productive activities to do, less meals that will be served to seniors in those facilities. If Meals on Wheels are cut, there will be more seniors who will be lonely and hungry in the corners and places of our city. That is not who we are, and we need to make sure that our elected officials understand that these cuts have real victims, and these victims are people that we care about, that we know, that we love, that are members of our community. So thank you for being here. With that, entertain any questions. Ed, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wonder if the speakers could talk about the connection between the military budget being expanded immensely and these cuts.
Well, let me speak on that. That budgets are documents which show priorities, and we saw in Trump's budget that his priority is to give the military a lot more money and to cut money from the other non-discretionary sources, which are sources that keep us strong at home and keep us as a community. So with this budget, you very clearly saw the decisions and priorities of the Trump administration. Yes. Oh, that's another one. I mean, thank you for bringing that up. The HEAT program, which provides low-cost heating, oil, and subsidies for people so that they can be warm in the winter. If that goes away, we're going to have people who will not be able to afford heating costs, and there will be more and more people who will be suffering because of that. And again, there are many seniors, there are many people in our community who depend on that. And I would, as I said in the beginning, just because you cut these programs doesn't mean the problems go away. So when you cut heating oil or you cut services to people that allow them to stay in their homes, the SHARP program, which will allow people to fix windows or a broken porch or a door, small, if you will, home repairs, or you help people stay in their homes by providing them a new water heater, or you educate people so that they can become first-time home buyers. When all those programs go away, then you have more and more people who will be forced into the streets and forced into our emergency shelter program, those problems will continue to grow and get larger, and there will be more and more people will be the victims in our community. Yes?
I'm proud of Syracuse and the way you're handling this. You get a feeling for other cities and maybe not New York State, but other states, what they're doing to fight this?
I think that we're seeing a movement across our country, that people are really understand what's at stake, and that they're getting active. And I would share with all of you that I am I've always been proud to be from this community, and I have been heartened by the community activism that we have seen. Saturday I was at a forum on democracy that the CNY Solidarity put on, and to watch 400 people there to talk about their community and to listen to these incredibly articulate speakers, many of whom never spoke in public before and were clearly nervous to speak. Your activism makes a difference. There's a reason that our congressman says he's not going to vote for Obamacare repeal and replace on Thursday. We have to be vigilant. It means that every single day or every single week we have to make an effort to make sure that we are active in this democracy. And I believe, and I've been told, and I'm seeing that's going on across the country, and it's going on here. And again, as I've said earlier on, this is part of our heritage. You know, we fought for abolition here. We fought for human rights here. We're going to continue the fight to make sure that we take care of all Americans and that no one is left behind. But that can only happen if it's all of us together. And I'm really heartened by the fact that it has been all of us together. So don't be weary. Don't get disappointed. Just realize that we're in it for the long haul. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Ricky.
Mariah. Appreciate it.
You're
You as
wearing
well.
that jacket too, buddy.
Thank you. Hey,
You're
get behind
styling
me.
it.